plan in November, that is exactly what we will deliver together. Thank you so much. I want to next introduce the chair of our school board, Chair Fernandez, and our superintendent, Jason Camrus.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In addition to our school board chair, we are joined by several school board members, including Ms. Ricard, Ms. Rizzi, Mr. Percival, Mr. Farouk, Ms. Holton, and am I missing anyone? I think I've got them all. I also want to recognize the president of the Richmond Education Association, Andrea Bryant, who is also here. Let me just begin by expressing our profound gratitude to Mayor Avula, to President Newbill and the entire City Council, to the school board, and of course, ultimately to the voters of Richmond for considering this 1% sales tax increase. This is a generational, life-changing opportunity for the children of Richmond. We say at Richmond that our motto is to teach, lead, and serve with love, and I can't think of any better way to show how much we love our children than giving them buildings that are worthy of them. We are filled with gratitude, and we know this is a significant ask of the voters of Richmond, which is why we want to reiterate, as we go about the process of creating a new master facilities plan, we are committed to being transparent, to being strategic, and to being equitable. And that will kick off this fall with broad stakeholder engagement so that this plan is truly Richmond's plan. Again, we are so incredibly grateful. Thank you, Mayor, for your leadership, President Newbill. With that, Chair Fernandez is going to stand here beautifully. Do you want to say? She's good. I'm going to call up who this is actually really about, our parents who send their beautiful children to us every day. Please join me in welcoming Miss Buckingham.
Good afternoon. My name is Ebony Ricks Buckingham. I am here with my beautiful daughters, Skyla Buckingham, who is a graduate of Blue Shawl Middle School and will be attending Richmond Community High School, and my lovely little daughter, Olivia Buckingham, who is a student at Patrick Henry School of Science and Arts. And I am here to speak about the 1% sales tax referendum. Every one of us knows what it feels like to walk into our children's schools and see both the magic and the need. Our kids show up with curiosity, creativity, and big dreams. But too many of our buildings are aging, patched together, or simply not built for the kind of learning environment they deserve. We've been stretching the same dollars for years, and the truth is, deferred maintenance does not disappear, it grows. That's why this upcoming referendum matters to me as a parent. The 1% local option tax isn't about politics. It's about giving our children safe, modern schools without placing the entire burden on homeowners and small businesses. I appreciate the groceries, essential hygiene items, and prescriptions are nearly a third of the revenue would come from people who work, shop, and visit Richmond, but don't pay property taxes here. That feels fair, and that feels like a shared responsibility. More importantly, this funding is legally locked in for school construction and renovations only, not salaries or operations, just the bricks, mortar, and spaces for kids to learn every day. As a parent, that accountability matters to me. We want our children to learn in buildings that reflect their worth. We want classrooms that are bright, safe, and built for the future. We want a city that chooses to invest in its children with transparency, collaboration, and community voices at its center. So as we move towards November, I'm asking my fellow parents, neighbors, and community members to pay attention ask questions, and show up. Our children are watching how we care for their places that they spend their days. The referendum is one way we can show them that their education, their safety, and their future truly matter. Thank you.
Using this? Okay. It didn't sound like it was working.
It'll record them.
Okay.
Maybe it'll record them.
All right, we're gonna do some questions. Missing a cue. Raymond, if there's anything I'm missing on this, just let me know.
Yeah, it'll record it. It won't amplify, but it'll record it, right? Yeah.
Ken Thompson, CBS 6. Starting with the GRCCA fund transfer, I believe you said 4.3 million. I believe that still leaves almost half of it, the shortfall here. Can the school board talk about that remaining, what you might be discussing? Do you still have to do any more cuts tonight, or what does this do?
Well, first off, I just want to extend our appreciation to the mayor, to the city council for offering those funds. They're incredibly helpful to address our shortfall. We still have about a little over $4 million that we need to make up, and the school board will be considering those cuts this evening at a special meeting at 6 o'clock.
And what are those cuts that you're considering? Can you tell us?
I would encourage you to tune in tonight.
All right, let's move on. Okay, now we got some noise here.
Under the previous administration, meals taxes were raised 1.5 points to fund school construction. So we're bringing them down 1%, but that leaves sort of a 0.5% raise from where they were previously. Is that 0.5% going to continue to fund school construction, or will it now just sort of go into the general fund for sort of whatever y'all decide to use it for?
Yeah, so the meals tax, the entirety of, or the 20% of the entirety of the meals tax was what was set aside for school construction. And so that nothing changes about that commitment. So the loans that were taken to fuel school construction in that first phase 1 and 2 that I mentioned, the meals tax is still devoted to paying off that debt service over the next 20 years. I don't know the exact terms. If you want details, we have our amazing financial advisors from Davenport that are here. If you want a more kind of detailed answer to that question, I can have David or Roland. Yeah, sure. You mind coming up, David? David Rose from Davenport.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, thank you.
Roland Cooch is my partner, and let's just come on up here. I think your question was something about the 0.5% still there. So as the mayor said, that legislation that was done roughly 8 or 9 years ago, what that said was basically is going to be 20% of that tax, whatever it is, it became 7.5%, would be going towards school funding of actual debt service. That roughly not only did what it was supposed to do, which was roughly take care of $150 million of school funding, but we also had an additional $15 million by virtue of the growth of that. So that will not change. Those dollars are still substantial enough to take care of, as the mayor said, for the remaining of that term period. But also, more importantly now, going forward, yes, there'll be that, effectively that 1%, 20% of that, if you start thinking about that, it's about a $2 million hit. But that $2 million hit is offset by that roughly $47 million of the new sales tax. So net, when the mayor was talking about having effectively $850 million be able to be funded, that's by virtue of that $45 million plus the natural growth that will take care of that over a period that's half as much time as just doing the 450 from the old plan. So there's multiple benefits here beyond just all of that. So thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Sabrina Moreno, Axios Richmond. Is the city confident that Richmond can still make the November ballot after Monday's vote, or is there any scenario where this slips to 2027?
We certainly will come to council on Monday for consideration, and I am absolutely hopeful that we'll proceed to have it go forward such that Richmond voters can make sure their voices are heard around creating this additional pool of dollars. If for some reason it doesn't go for, we know how to come back. But we are, and I am looking forward to it moving forward.
But if it hypothetically does move forward, we can make the November ballot. Like that's
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely. We introduced it in enough time to make sure, oh, yes. I'm sorry, I misunderstood the question. Okay.
Just wanted that 100%.
Hi, Victoria Fatuson with the Richmonder. The division had previously picked up on working on the master facilities plan back in November. Where does that stand now? Will it be ready in time for the referendum?
The plan is in its early stages, and what's most important to us is that it reflects all of our stakeholders. Unfortunately, it's hard to engage families, of course, students, and many folks over the summer. So we will be engaged in a broad-based stakeholder engagement process over the fall, with the goal then in winter presenting a first draft for the school board to consider. I'm sure there will be multiple drafts as we get feedback. So the full plan won't be available in time for the referendum, but I actually think it's a good thing in a way that we have the opportunity for the city to weigh in and to share what they believe the priorities should be as we take the next step with this funding.
Hi, Kayra Spantanaris with VPM News. Part of the hurdle that RPS faces is that they're waiting for the state to tell them how much money they're receiving and for the city. What's the status on the school funding formula that you all have been working on so that leaders can start planning ahead for the next school year?
I can speak at the state level. One of the things that is extremely encouraging is the General Assembly did set aside money in FY27 to begin to create a new funding formula for public education in the Commonwealth. And that is going to be the most transformative opportunity, not just for us, but for school divisions across the state. And so we are eagerly looking forward to that developing over the course of the year. And hopefully, if not in FY28, then in FY29, Virginia will have a new funding formula, which is more equitable and which truly serves the needs of young people like those here in the city of Richmond.
But what about the one that you all were collaborating with the city on, determining a plan moving forward?
Good afternoon. Yes, we did explore at a very base level a different type of structure for the funding formula at a city level. We have not been able to connect. Understandably, a lot was up in the air based upon how late the budget came in for the state, which in turn had us to readdress some of those shortfall issues. However, we are hopeful that we will re-engage in the conversation. We are certainly looking forward to that collaboration and open to the many ideas that will come from it. From a stability standpoint, it's going to be key in ensuring that as we go from budget cycle to budget cycle, there's a less sense of uncertainty as we look forward. Thank you.
Hi, Ben Wells from Channel 8. Just wanted to know, I know we talked about the meals tax or ending the meals tax a little bit. Also would like for you just to talk about specifically people out there, my grocery bill is high. My rent is incredibly high. I'm being priced out of my place. Just would like for you all to hit home specifically for those who have those concerns on why they would like to take another tax seriously.
Yeah, I think that is the reason that we wanted to make sure the people of Richmond know that we hear that, and that in the consideration of this rollout, we don't want to just add another tax burden, but we want to pair it with other places where they would have a tax reduction. Obviously, there's a lot of factors in the macro economy that drive day-to-day affordability. We as a city have done a lot in this last couple of years and will continue to advance new programs and new funding to try to alleviate particularly the housing burden for both homeowners and renters. It's part of why we've got to build more housing, right? The fact that, I mean, just yesterday we were featured on the Today Show after LinkedIn named us the #2 city on the rise in the country, right? So the reality of Richmond's attractiveness as a region, the fact that people want to move here, we have to build more houses if we're going to try to get housing prices under control. It's the big impetus for the whole revision of our zoning code. It's so that we can make it easier to build more housing. So that's another strategy that we're using in addition to the work that we're doing internally to make it easier to go through the building process. But I think this is one part of a larger strategy of how we try to address affordability in our community.
Do you want to? Okay, you hold it. Okay.
Superintendent reminded me, just it's important also to note that that sales tax does not apply to groceries or medicine.
Mayor, I know you're have a lot of great things on the table here with lowering meals tax and also real estate, but I think a lot of people, when they see the ballot, they're just going to notice, oh, sales tax increase. How confident are you that this is going to get passed?
You know, I think it's up to the people, and I think it's up to us to make sure that we're doing a good job of educating that this is not a 1% increase in isolation for the sales tax, but that there are other things that the city is committed to reduce that burden. And so we will certainly be putting that word out far and wide. We're asking partners in the community to make sure that they're talking to their spheres of influence. I think there will need to be a chorus of voices who get behind this, and ultimately, like, this is a democracy. It is up to the people to decide these things, and so I'm glad we have the opportunity to hear from them on it.
Will that be in the language on the referendum? Will it say, like, if you do this, you'll get this too?
I don't think so. I don't think so I think that it'll stand alone as a 1% addition to sales tax, and then all of the other pieces of this will have to communicate in other ways.
Jonathan Spires with Richmond BizSense. Mayor, I wanted to ask you, you're talking about the adjustment to the meals tax. Obviously, the business community remembers not too long ago a lot of issues with collections and meals tax issues in general. There's also been more recent issues with utilities billing. Can you talk about how the city has been addressing those and why voters shouldn't be concerned about that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously meals tax collection had been an ongoing issue for many years. I think we have ironed out many of those. It's not perfect. I mean, I still get things in my inbox where, you know, something has been calculated wrong or somebody's trying to figure something out. So we continue to be committed to building capacity in our finance department, to building our customer service and being responsive to these needs. I would say the number of emails I get of frustration are outpaced by the number of emails of people who have had really good experiences or who are grateful for the opportunity to come in and have their issues resolved on meals tax in particular. And so I feel like we've made some good progress there, more work to do for sure. Utilities I'd put in a different box, right? We rolled out a new IT platform over a system that had not been updated in 40 years. I think our team actually did a fantastic job of like testing it in the sandbox, making sure it integrated with other systems, trying to figure out what bugs might come up. Unbeknownst to us, in the middle of that rollout, one of our vendors actually changed servers, which created a lot of problems, a lot of headaches. Now, to the people of Richmond, they don't care if it's a vendor or it's us, right? Like, that's still something that we've got to fix. And so the last few weeks, we have added 15 people to the customer service staff. We're trying to scale up and make sure that we're being as responsive as we can. I just got a text from our DPU director this morning that said our complaint calls to utilities have now dropped to baseline levels. So again, we've got work to do. This is another place for ongoing improvement because hopefully this won't be the only new tech platform that we roll out. And so we're going to look at what went well, what did not go well, and how do we just improve that for each new platform, because we know that the adoption of new technology is something that we've got to do well so that people have a better access to the information they need and a better customer service experience. So we'll stay at it.
Scott Bass with Richmond Magazine. Just quickly, Jason, could you talk a little bit about the scope of the problem? What are we talking about when it comes to how much work needs to be done? What are the capital needs in terms of repairing schools? How many are we talking about? Just some big picture.
Scott, you may be the first person who's asked me to articulate the scope because it is so apparent to so many of our students and families. But if I were to quantify it, I'd say at minimum, it's $1 billion challenge that we face. As you heard from the mayor, the revenue from the sales tax, if it were to pass, would be able to be leveraged for about $850 million worth of bonds for school construction. That gets us a long way. It doesn't solve everything, but it makes a huge leap forward. In essence, with this 1%, if it were to happen, we're basically going to get twice as much funding in half the amount of time. And that's what's so critical. We'll be able to do more quicker. So kids who are in school today will see the fruits of this 1% before they leave us. Absent that, it is hard for me to make that promise, that it'll be 10, 15, or 20 years down the road before young people have that opportunity. Very concretely, roofs that leak, HVAC systems that don't provide as much cooling as we'd like when it's warm and as much warming as we'd like when it's cold. We have asbestos in some buildings. We have facades that are crumbling. None of these things show our students how much we care about them. They show the opposite. And as President Bryant from the REA often says, learning conditions are teaching conditions. So this isn't just about our children, it's also about our teachers. It's about making the job of being a teacher in Richmond Public Schools a little bit more sustainable. And that will have a profound impact on our retention, which of course then returns in student achievement down the road.
Is this going to require some additional capacity as it relates to school construction? I mean, since schools have taken over school construction, how do you foresee that? How do you get to a point where you can actually build that many schools?
So before I answer the question, I wanted to just share a point that the chair made. We're also facing overcrowding in some of our schools, particularly on the south side, and so that is another issue that we're facing. As to your question, it may require some increase in our capacity in terms of the construction team, but we're pretty lean right now. We've run a very lean construction shop, just a small handful of people, and so I think we'll continue to be lean and make sure that we're being as efficient with these dollars as humanly possible.
I think we have folks who have a couple more questions. I do want to be mindful. If we have leaders who need to head out, you may, of course, slip out, except for you, Mayor. So let me go back around.
Mayor Avula, a lot of folks describe a sales tax as a regressive tax. Unlike a real estate tax or a property tax, it's overwhelmingly paid by lower income folks. Do you have any concerns there? I know y'all are limited in what you're allowed to target under state law. Do you have any concerns about this more regressive nature of the tax? Is there ways to offset that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what the General Assembly really tried to address in carving out groceries and medicines, right? And making sure that like the staples that everybody needs and that most of our lower income families who don't have as much discretionary income are going to be hit the least based on that designation. So I think there was a lot of thought that went into it. As I said earlier, like we will continue to try to find ways through our Family Crisis Fund and through, some of our tax abatement and ultimately by getting our arms around housing to try to make life more affordable. But this is, a multi-pronged effort, so.
Hi, Noelle Myrick with CBS 6. I was wondering what decisions will be going into, what qualifications will be going into which schools will be targeted first for these updates, and how should parents expect to be notified of where their school lies in terms of being renovated in such ways?
It's a great question. There are so many different factors that we will look at, everything from the condition of each facility, what are its needs, to its age, to its enrollment, and what our future projections. Is it over-enrolled or not? Is it likely to be over-enrolled in the future? We want to make sure that whatever we do is equitable. We want to make sure that we impact the most number of students. We want to make sure that we're stretching every dollar as far as we can, utilizing things like historic tax credits, which we did with the Fox rebuild. So all of those things will be considered. Ultimately, it will be our stakeholders in the community who will be weighing in about how to balance all of those different factors, which will then produce ultimately a list for the board to consider, the democratically elected board of the City of Richmond. They'll weigh that. I'm sure we'll have feedback, and we'll then make iterations and then get to a final place. But I really do think this is going to be a beautiful process where everybody gets to weigh in and help shape how this funding is ultimately used.
Hi, Sabrina with Axios again. How much of this tax would be paid by visitors versus Richmond residents? And I'm asking that because Chesterfield estimated that for them it'd be about 25 to 30% falling on visitors.
Yeah, we don't know for sure. I mean, I think our initial estimates are somewhere around 30% based on the limited data that we've been able to find here. We'll continue to, so that data is largely kept at the state level in terms of where that money is coming in. So we'll continue to parse it out and try to get a better number for folks. But ballparking about 30%.
Kay Riss again with VPM News. You know, as Mr. Cameras discussed, still millions of cuts are on the table for tonight. Is there a way that money can be pulled from the emergency funding reserves to help them with the gap that they're facing? I know earlier this year, City Council approved money to go to that stadium in the Diamond. Why can't we do the same for schools?
Yeah, you know, I think those decisions are always options, and ultimately it's up to me and more so the council to try to just balance all of those priorities. And I think, as you heard from the superintendent, the schools will continue to work over the next couple of months to figure out, you know, how do they optimize their budget? Are there ways that they can pull back? Does that $4+ million gap actually shrink over the next few months? You know, I think it's going to be an all hands on deck pursuit to try to figure out how do we close this gap together. And as I've said at every turn, like, we're super committed as a city to that. We know schools are one of our biggest priorities, certainly financially, but also just philosophically. And so we're at the table with our budget folks, but also with our school partners to figure out how we can close the gap.
Okay, I think we have 2 more questions, and then we'll reevaluate where we are at that point, just given the time.
Hi again. I just want to follow up on the facilities, on the master's facilities plan. I think you had mentioned before it's still in the early stages. Can you just explain why? And since, like, how can voters specifically be confident about what that money will be going towards if they can't see the plan in advance?
So one of the reasons it takes some time is there's a lot of data to gather. We have the facility assessment data, but we're also doing enrollment modeling, several other different data pieces that we're all pulling together that we can then bring to the public for them to see and begin to weigh the trade-offs between, say, for example, prioritizing an older building that might not be at full enrollment versus a newer building that's overcrowded. As you can see, there are going to be pros and cons. And so there's no plan that's on a shelf that the public doesn't see. We will be creating the plan with the public over the course of the fall. So it will be completely transparent, and then ultimately it will come publicly to the school board for their consideration and feedback, and then ultimately they will make a final decision. So this will be a 100% transparent process.
Okay, last question, Ben. I forgot you. We can get you after. You're good? Okay.
A 2-parter, one on the GRCCA. Just to clarify, as you said, you're asking for this advance, the $4.3 million. Is that money being, I guess, pulled from somewhere else, or is it money that had not been allocated yet? I guess, what can that not be spent on? And then for the sales tax, potentially, I know several other localities are rushing to get this on the ballot, Chesterfield, Powhatan. With this prediction of 45 to 47 million per year, how would that change based off of how many other places also put in a sales tax or don't? Because I think Henrico has said we're not going to do it.
Yeah, I'll
That was two, so do your best.
I'll try to address the second part of that first, which is that our projections are just based on the actual historical sales tax and the revenue growth we've seen as we've seen population growth, right? So I don't. It's not like the pot is well defined and we only get a piece of it, right? The whole region's population is growing and more things are being consumed and more sales tax is being generated. So not as much of a concern. And I think our estimates are, again, based on historical data and some projections, they may actually do better. I mean, we're the #2 city on the rise, man. Maybe we'll do way better. We'll see. The first part, so the Greca rebate is $4.78 million. And this is money that we typically collect all of our hotel and lodging tax. It all goes to Greca. Greca uses that money to pay off its operating expenses, and then they issue rebates back to the 4 localities that own the convention center, us, Hanover, Chesterfield, and Henrico. Now, because the region as a whole has done really well with hotel occupancy. Again, like the buzz about this region is real, and we have more and more visitation. We're seeing higher and higher revenues. The amount of money that we had budgeted for, we had anticipated a total of about $4 million, maybe a little bit less in Greca revenues. So we've already, in asking for an advance on this, we've already seen us outpace what we budgeted for. We will get the rest of that in December, which is historically when we've gotten the full rebate. And so we'll see what that number is. But yeah, to answer your question, this was not money that was previously budgeted for anything else. So we were anticipating $4 million. We'll probably see a total of 7-8 million total, and we're getting an advance on that.
Thank you, everybody. If you had a burning question you did not get answered, you know where to find me. I think we're going to wrap, and appreciate you all being here. We will send out names. I know some of you are asking for names, and we'll send out a release or mayor's prepared remarks. So thank you all so much. Appreciate it.